Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I am super excited to finally be filming these videos. I've wanted to start a YouTube channel for such a long time now, and I just kind of kept letting fear and self-doubt get in the way, but not anymore. I said that, today is the day, and I am making my first video. So thank you all for watching, and please subscribe and tell people if you really like this, and if you don't, please let me know how I can improve. Today, I really wanted to share with you all my story of applying to PhD programs and getting rejected the first go round, and then eventually getting accepted the second go round into an Ivy League university, which seems like the craziest turnaround underdog story ever, but it's really exciting, and I'm so glad that I get to share it with you all. Using the pain that I went through during that year, and now getting to share my story of resilience and overcoming obstacles and adversity. So I guess I'll just jump right in. I am a recent-ish graduate from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I graduated in 2019 with a major in psychology and a major in interdisciplinary studies, which is basically like a create your own major type of deal, and I did African American resilience, which was really cool, getting to kind of mesh psychology and policy and philosophy and public health. And then I had a minor in health and society, which is code for public health. But in college, I was really involved in psychology and public health research. I found kind of my calling through that. I was really excited to be able to use science in a way that would benefit and improve the conditions in my community, mental health and social determinants of health. And that really, really propelled me forward, I would say, in my career aspirations to start considering a PhD. Because before, it sounds weird, but I didn't really know what a PhD was. I was kind of like, I know that my professors have this thing called a doctorate. Is that the same thing as a PhD, or like, is it different? What are they doing? So it took me a while to kind of get to the conclusion that I didn't want to be a medical doctor and that I actually wanted to get a PhD. But once I did, I was in it to win it. My sophomore year was when I decided to join a research lab. I kind of awkwardly emailed a professor and was like, hey, I think that your work is really cool. Do you have a spot for me? And she was very welcoming, and it was a developmental psychology lab kind of focused on African American academic achievement and stereotype threat in the school system. So that was my first exposure to working in a research lab, and I honestly really loved it. I was like, this is great, this is interesting, but I knew it wasn't quite the route that I wanted to go. And so through a little bit more exploration and classes, I decided that clinical counseling psychology was really, really where my heart was at. I wanted to develop interventions. I wanted to mesh public health and science and mental health delivery and services. So I really found my calling through that, I think. And from there, it just kind of skyrocketed. I was really involved in research, as in balancing sometimes 3 labs at once, on top of working, on top of internships, and being a research ambassador, being a mental health ambassador on campus. So I would say I really poured my heart into it. And when senior year came around, I was like, I think I'm gonna apply for the PhD. And so I started studying for the GRE, maybe not as hard as I should have studied, but I did pull out my book occasionally that fall, and I started studying, math is my weak area. So I was really putting a lot of effort into that, and then learning some vocabulary along the way. But overall, feeling pretty confident about my application, because the year before, I had watched my best friend go through the process, and she had gained admission to a doctoral program in clinical psychology, and she made it look so easy and seamless, and little did I know it was going to be one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. But anyways, I had really worked hard to get a decent score on the GRE. It wasn't great. I want to say like everything was around, math was around 50th percentile. I think my verbal was it was like 78th percentile-ish, 76 maybe, around there. And then my writing was like 90th, because that was my strong suit. So I was feeling okay with that. My GPA was decent as well. And then I knew that in extracurricular activities, such as the research I was doing and the internship opportunities that I had, I knew that, I had a pretty solid application. I worked hard on crafting a good personal statement. I wanted to develop something that explained what I was about, who I was, what I'd been doing, and how I was going to use that in the program, and just really conveying my passion for clinical psychology. I applied to 5 schools. I applied to University of Houston, University of South Carolina, George Washington University, Georgia State, and another one. No, it seems like it's been so long ago, but I applied to 5 schools, and when I sent my applications off in, I think, early December, because I think they're due December 1st, I felt confident and was really ready to start receiving those interview invites that typically roll around mid-January. So mid-January comes around and it's silence. Like, it is crickets. There's no one calling. I'm refreshing my email, like, I kid you not, maybe somewhere between 75 and 100 times a day at that point, waiting to hear something. I'm checking message boards. I'm pestering my friend about, when did you hear back from this school? And, just really trying to get as much information and insight as I could in the process, because I was like, I knew something was wrong. And my confidence and my faith started to wane as I think the 3rd week of January hit, and I still hadn't heard a single thing. And the interview dates were right around the corner. Like, they were like February 7th, 8th. So they were early February. Here we are in late January. I still hadn't heard anything. And that's when it started to sink in that I had not gotten admission. I hadn't even gotten an interview invite. And I really didn't take it so well. And I know it sounds like I had a chip on my shoulder, because I definitely did. I only had my friend as my frame of reference, who had gotten in straight out of undergrad. Again, she made it look so easy, and I knew that we had been involved in some of the similar activities. We had the same recommenders, so it was just like, I just expected it. And I worked hard for it. And now I know that getting into a PhD program is exceptionally hard. I mean, a lot of these clinical psychology, counseling psychology programs have acceptance rates between 1% and 6%, and the places I was applying to were around 1% to 4% acceptance rate, so it was a really difficult thing, and I honestly had no idea at the time. No one had really told me that it was going to be so difficult. And coming from somewhere like the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where you're constantly being praised for how smart you are, I just expected to get in, and that didn't happen. To say that was a dark time in my life is an understatement. It was extremely hard having to finally tell the people that I love that I let them down, or at least that's how I viewed it. And for me, being a woman of faith and a Christian woman, just believing in God and opportunities that He has for my purpose, I felt so abandoned and forsaken. And it was a hard time, I think, in my faith as well, especially watching those around me flourish and get to pursue their dreams and feeling like God had denied me access to mine. It was very difficult and not a fun season whatsoever. So once I found out that I hadn't gotten into any schools, I finally decided, all right, well, I'm gonna have to pick myself up and start applying for jobs. And I have worked nonstop since I was 16 years old. And my senior year, actually, I was working full-time in a research lab at Duke University. So I knew what the work life was like. And to be honest, I wasn't really excited for it, but I knew that I still had purpose in psychology. And as hard as it was to believe that at the time, there was something within me, and I can explain it as God letting me know that this is what He has for me, just not yet. I knew that there was a space in psychology for me. And so I applied to jobs, mostly in psychology, some in journalism, some in TV presenting, but mostly in psychology. and I eventually got a job at RTI International, which is a really large science organization based in North Carolina, and they also have regional and international offices. And their mission is to improve the human condition, which sounds really progressive, so I was excited about it. And I now work in their mental health risk and resilience research program. I'd really like to say that after getting a job, everything fell into place, but to be honest, it didn't. I started working really, really quickly after graduating. So I had a full-time job up until May 30th, and then I started working at RTI International the first week of June. So I didn't give myself much of a break, and that's definitely something I kind of regret now, but it was hard watching my friends pursue their dreams or travel or do whatever while I was really working a straight 8 to 6 job and also living an hour away from my job. So getting up really early and commuting and then having a long drive back, and then the next month deciding, you know what, I'm gonna apply to PhD programs again. The decision to apply to PhD programs again was and wasn't an easy one. I knew I really wanted to do it, but I was also is this the right thing to do? And having a million different voices in my ear telling me what I should and shouldn't do was hard. And I had just started a job, and it seemed like, oh my gosh, it's time to start working on applications again, because I knew that I wanted to get a higher GRE score. I knew that I wanted to perfect and refine my research interests so that I could put them into a statement more easily. So it was a hard decision to decide, okay, is this really, really what I want to do? And I spent the first part of the summer really getting to know myself. And I know that sounds really cliche, but I spent it reading a lot of self-help type books. I can make a list later, but I spent the summer reading, I spent it with friends, I spent it praying and attending church, just trying to find some guidance from anywhere I thought was good. And the conclusion that I came to was that, I think I'm gonna apply again. I think something's gonna be different this time. My parents encouraged me, whatever I wanted to do, and so I was really lucky to have that support system. And even my supervisors at work were really encouraging. After only knowing me for 6 weeks or so, when I told them that I thought that's what I wanted to do, they were fully supportive. And I know that not everyone has that experience, so I'm definitely thankful for that. A lot of people ask me, what was so different between this time around and last time around? I think it was confidence in myself that was able to kind of bleed through my application process, and how I went about applications was just completely different. It didn't feel so all or nothing anymore. It felt like, this is something that I'm gonna attempt to do. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'll be okay. I've proven that I'll be okay. I've got a job. I have things to fall back on. And I know that I'm more than my achievements. And it took me, I think, 6 months or so to even start building on that idea that I had worth aside from academic achievement. And once I did, everything about applying to a PhD program changed in my mind. I think before I was doing it out of just following the steps and going through the motions of this is what a smart person does and this is what Bree should do because she is smart, to I wanted to get a PhD to really help my community, to really change systems, and having a job and being exposed to more things led me to believe even more. It really affirmed my decision that a PhD was for me, and that clinical psychology, counseling psychology was going to be something that I pursue and that I'm going to do well in for the rest of my life. So my second time around, I did get higher GRE scores. It was a really hard thing to do because I basically had just moved to a new city. It was only an hour away from my hometown, but still, it was a new city, new apartment, first time living by myself. And I wanted to enjoy the freedom. I was really excited to just go out with friends after work, get drinks, do all this stuff, but I knew I had to study. And I knew that my senior year, I had put my social life first. So I was like, okay, Bree, this time we're gonna spend 4 weeks studying 2 to 3 hours a day, kid you not. And on the weekends, we're gonna put in, 4 hours a day. So 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours on Sunday, and then Monday through Friday, putting in somewhere between 2 and 3.5-ish hours so that I was really prepared. And that took a lot of self-discipline, but somehow I did it. Like, if you want something bad enough, you will do it. And lo and behold, after a month of putting my head down and really just grinding, my scores did increase pretty dramatically. And that was a great thing for me because I'm not a good test taker. I honestly get bored. I don't know. I don't have the attention span. If you've ever taken the GRE, it is one of the most boring exams ever. I know people who take the MCAT are looking at me like, at least it's not 7 hours long, which is very true, but still the GRE sucks. But once I was able to get past that, things really did just skyrocket, and I was able to move on with the rest of my application. And so I ended up applying to 11 schools this time around, really researching professors. You know, before I had definitely done my research, but I think that I had such broad research interests that I was going to be, you know, accepting of wherever I got in. It was just kind of like, I just want to get into a program. I have to get into a program. So whoever's going to accept me, whatever. And my metric for applying to PhD programs the first time around was just looking at, you know, what did people have as far as GPA and GRE to get into these schools, and then applying where I thought I could get in versus applying to places where I really felt like I fit and where I could grow. And so my list of 11 schools was good. I felt really good about them. I felt like no matter where I end up in these 11 schools, I'll be okay. And they ranged, like they were UNCG to University of Miami to Columbia to Houston again. You know, they were all over the place, Santa Barbara. But there were places where I really felt like I could make a difference, and places that I thought could really invest in me and grow me as a researcher in the direction that I want to go. I was also intentional about my recommendation letter writers and who I wanted them to come from. I think the first time I was really concerned about status and about name and title more so than getting individuals who actually knew me and could speak to my strengths both in character and in research. And so this time I asked people that might not have, you know, 15 million publications or direct their own initiatives, but people who knew me. And honestly, I think that made the world of a difference. Those recommendation letters were so different than the ones that I had submitted previously. I mean, they spoke to who I was as a person, and that's ultimately what you want your graduate program to know about you, who you really, really are, so that when you get there, there's no surprises on your end or on their end. And having that intentionality in selecting who was writing my recommendations, I think saved my butt this application round. My personal statement also changed. It spoke from a more vulnerable and raw place for me than I had done previously. And I think that was because I just had more time to reflect on my journey, and going through the rejection made me more reflective on where I really wanted to go and where I saw myself in the program, what kind of change I see myself making in the world. And being able to articulate that also made the world of a difference in my personal statement and my application. I would also say, I know this is really weird and you might get different advice around this, but I started using social media more. I'd always been told that social media can really kill you in applications. You know, obviously if you're posting party pics and you drinking and everything, yeah, maybe not the best thing for applications and for admissions boards, but if you use your social media to really display a good civic person, I think that it can help you a lot. I made a professional Twitter. Academic Twitter is really interesting. I had only experienced Black Twitter, so going to professional Twitter was an interesting adjustment, but I actually really like it. I was able to connect with researchers in the field and learn about new papers, learn about new methods, and it's something that I still do today. So out of those 11 schools, I really shocked myself. I got 9 interview invites. And I remember when the 5th one called, it was VCU, I was at work and the professor called to invite me to the interview. And when I hung up the phone, it was like a rush of emotion. Like, I hadn't expressed much emotion throughout the entire process just because I think I was holding it all in. I didn't want to get disappointed again. But this time he called and he just had really great things to say about my application, and just hearing the excitement in his voice of wanting to work with me, I was just like, wow, this is the real deal. This is really happening. This is all the things that I had prayed for and it's really happening. It was a shocking feeling. And so I hung up the phone and I just started bawling. Like, I was in a conference room in work and I was just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. And I have worth and I have something to contribute to this field. And it was just one of the most amazing feelings. I often reflect back to that moment because I think it was a realization that what I have and what I'll do in the future is already in me. You know, I just need someone to invest, but it's there. The rest of the experience speaks for itself. I mean, 9 out of 11 interview invites. I was accepted into 5 or 6 schools out of those 9, which was tremendous. And one of them being Teachers College, Columbia University, which it sent shockwaves down my body. I was just like, really? Because I didn't want to apply to Columbia, or I really did want to apply to Columbia, but I was just like, this is a waste of money. I'm not getting in there. Like, do you not understand? I just got rejected from every single place I applied to. Why am I putting dollars into Columbia? They're an Ivy League. They're not going to accept me, blah, blah, blah. And to get that acceptance was wild. It's a wild story. I should probably tell you about it. It just seems like after a year of mental torment and mental adversity, getting to experience the rush of acceptance into a program was like the heaven gates had been opened. It felt like finally my purpose had been affirmed. And I know that I pray daily, sometimes multiple times a day, and always seeking answers from God. And I remember the day of the interview, I felt like I had done horribly and I was upset, and I was like telling God, you know, why did I mess up? Why would you just put this opportunity and dangle it in my face and let me just, you know, completely blow it? And I was angry and I was upset, and just, again, it brought me back to like a dark place because I was like, you know what, I know Columbia is not for me. I know I can't get in. And then the next day, getting that call was just one of the most amazing experiences I think I've had, you know, spiritually, because it really shows that what is for you and that no one can take that away from you. So that's how I went from being rejected to every single program to getting accepted into 6 programs, and one of them is an Ivy League. And I could not be more grateful to my support systems that helped me along in this process. You know, my friends, my family, my mentor, my mentors at work, my mentors from school, and just around the community that I found. You know, I found inspiration through my experiences, and I'm so glad that God allowed all of that for me. And again, affirm that psychology and getting this PhD is for me. And I'm really excited to start this journey. And I'm so glad that I get to tell this story to you all. And hopefully it's inspiring, because I know what it's like to be in the pits of despair and feeling like, you know, you're not good enough or that you're not meant for this. But my message is that you are. And sometimes, you know, you think the path is this way and it's really this way. And it's just, you just have to go with it. You have to be able to be adaptable to everything that life throws at you. So thank you all for watching my very first YouTube video. You know, my main message is just, I love that quote, bloom where planted. You know, if you find yourself in a place where you have been rejected from programs or rejected from opportunities that you thought were for you, really use these moments to bloom where planted, to find inspiration in the things and the settings and the opportunities around you. Never stop saying yes. Always seek opportunity. Always seek places and things for you to grow and for you to experience. And before you know it, applications are going to roll around again, and you're going to be better prepared. This is going to be your year.